I think Liverpool are in a better position than they used to be. Remember, Mohamed Salah and Sadio Mane used to go away to the Africa Cup of Nations. Sadio Mane is no longer there. Yes, Mohamed Salah is going away, but I think they have depth in the forward line to cope. The interesting thing is the game against Arsenal, 4th of February. That is either a day after or a couple of days after the quarter-finals of the AFCON, depending on what happens in the draw, depending on Egypt's results. So I think for him to play in that game, Egypt would have to get knocked out in the last 16, and I expect them to go further than that.
Yeah, as we've just been talking about, that game against Liverpool could be crucial for Arsenal's title hopes as well. What about those sides on the fringes, maybe the likes of West Ham and Brighton?
Well, for me, Mohamed Kudus leaving West Ham will be a big factor. The West Ham fans have a new hero. He's been sensational. 10 goals so far in 23 games. He's been the X factor for West Ham in this David Moyes side. He's made such a big impact since arriving from Ajax. So I really feel that West Ham will miss him. Ghana aren't in great shape, it has to be said at the moment. You speak to their fans, they're not optimistic about how far they could go in the tournament. They've got a tough group, so maybe he'll be home fairly early. But yeah, that's a big loss.
And at the other end of the table, two sides in particular may be harder hit than others.
Yeah, Sheffield United are hit hard in the relegation battle, but particularly Nottingham Forest, who have picked up some really good results since Nuno Espirito Santo came in, but losing 6 players, and you can see some big players as well, some influential players for them, the likes of Niakate, Sangare, Bolly. So that's going to be tough. They do have a big squad. We know about this big squad, and they're trying to shift some players out in January, but those are influential players that will be at the tournament and will be a big miss for Nottingham Forest.
And you've been covering the Africa Cup of Nations for a number of years now. We've got the Asian Cup kind of thrown in there as well. Previously, we didn't really have a winter break in the Premier League. We've got an FA Cup window thrown in there. So players maybe aren't missing as many Premier League games as they would have done before. In your experience, does it really make a difference?
You're right, it is a quieter January than normal, so I don't think it's going to make a huge amount of difference this time in terms of the players being away. One thing I think is always forgotten, though, is when the players come back, because it takes not only a physical toll, but an emotional toll, a major tournament. Imagine coming back from a European Championship, straight away you're back in club football. I've seen it before, players come back from a Cup of Nations. I remember in 2013 being on an overnight flight with a Nigeria player who just won the Cup of Nations, and we landed at Heathrow Airport early in the morning. He had to play a Champions League game that night against Juventus, and I won't say who the player was, but he was at fault for all 3 goals that his team conceded that day. So I think it does make an impact afterwards. Not always. We've seen Salah and Mane play for Liverpool brilliantly after returning from an AFCON, but I do think it does take not only a physical toll, but an emotional toll on the players having to return straight to club football.